The Bell Beaker phenomenon radically changed the genetic face of Europe and especially Britain. I'm Krutik, I'm a scientist, and in today's video, we assess ancient genomes which tell us who the Beaker folk were.
Around 4,800 years ago, a new culture swept across Western and Southern Europe. Archaeologists call it the Bell Beaker phenomenon, named for the distinctive bell-shaped pottery found in graves of its people. But these graves contained more than just beakers. They held clues to a profound transformation, one that would reshape the genetic destiny of the entire continent. Today we delve into the ancient DNA of the Beaker people to solve a decade-old mystery. Was this simply a spread of new ideas and technologies, or was it a mass migration of people? As we'll see, the answer depends entirely on how you look. And for the people of prehistoric Britain especially, this was a genetic maelstrom. Before we open the book of genomes, let's look into the clues these people left in the earth. The Bell Beaker phenomenon is defined by a distinctive cultural package, a toolkit of artifacts and practices that rapidly appeared in the archaeological record across Europe. This was a culture of skilled archers. Many individuals were buried with finely crafted flint arrowheads and distinctive stone wristguards, worn to protect the arm from the snap of a bowstring. This combination of artifacts, the beakers, the daggers, the bows, paints a picture of a well-equipped and technologically sophisticated people for this time period. For decades, archaeologists debated the meaning of this toolkit's sudden and widespread appearance. Was this simply a new fashion that spread amongst different groups of people? Or did it represent the arrival of a new people? The oldest artifacts dated back to around 4,700 years ago and were found in Iberia, suggesting a southern European origin. But only ancient DNA could reveal the true identity of the people who carried this culture into the rest of Western and Southern Europe. To untangle the Beaker mystery, a massive international team of scientists embarked on an unprecedented genetic investigation, the results of which were published into the Nature journal in 2018. The scale of the study was immense. The researchers gathered and analyzed the DNA from 400 prehistoric individuals whose remains were associated with the Beaker culture, collected from 136 archaeological sites across Europe. This study included 226 Beaker-associated individuals from mainland Europe, 37 Beaker-associated individuals from Britain who were compared directly to their continental counterparts, and an additional 118 individuals from Britain. 51 of these lived before the Beaker arrival, 67 lived after. This was a crucial piece of information to track the genetic change over time within the British Isles. This new data was then compiled with 683 previously sequenced ancient genomes, bringing the total ancient dataset to over 1,000 ancient individuals. To compare this prehistoric dataset to the present day, they also included the genomes of 2,572 modern people from Europe. From these ancient genomes, the scientists analyzed over 1.2 million single nucleotide polymorphisms, or SNPs, allowing them to create a high-resolution genetic map of Europe during this pivotal period of prehistory. The question was, what this genetic map would reveal. Let's begin in Britain, where the Beaker culture arrived around 4,400 years ago. For decades, archaeologists debated their origin. The oldest Beaker artifacts were found in Iberia, modern Spain and Portugal, leading to the theory that the culture and the people expanded from the south. Ancient DNA can put this theory to the ultimate test, and the results were a complete shock. The Beaker individuals in Britain showed almost no genetic affinity to the earlier Beaker-associated people from Iberia. Instead, the DNA was overwhelmingly linked to the Beaker groups in Central Europe, particularly the Netherlands. This proved that the arrival in Britain was not a movement from the south, but an invasion from the east. But that was just the beginning. The truly stunning discovery came from when the team compared the Beaker migrants' DNA to Neolithic people who were already living in Britain, the descendants of the farmers who built Stonehenge. Like this video if you'd appreciate an anthropological look into the people who built Stonehenge. The data revealed a population replacement on a scale that is almost unparalleled in human record. Within a few hundred years, the genetic profile of Britain was completely transformed. The modelling showed that at least 90% of the ancestry of the British people from this period came from the incoming Beaker migrants. The people who built Stonehenge had, in a genetic sense, almost effectively vanished, replaced by a new people. The smoking gun came from studying the uniparental markers. The Y chromosome haplogroup R1b, which is dominant in Western Europe today, was completely absent in Neolithic Britain. However, after the Beaker arrival, it accounted for over 90% of the male lineages. At the same time, new mitochondrial DNA haplogroups like I, R1a, and U4 arrived also, proving that this was not just a wave of male warriors, but a mass movement of men, women, and children who became the new genetic foundation of the British Isles. So, if the Beaker people who stormed Britain came from Central Europe, what was happening there? And what about Iberia, where the pottery style originated? This is where the story gets more fascinating, because the Beaker phenomenon was not a single event. In Central Europe, the ancient DNA from Germany and the Czech Republic show a very different pattern. Here, the Beaker people had a high proportion of ancestry from the Eurasian steppe, inherited from the corded ware culture predecessors, but it wasn't a total replacement. The data shows evidence of genetic mixing and assimilation between the incoming steppe descendants groups and the local Neolithic farmers. In Iberia, the pattern was different yet again. The earliest Beaker individuals here had no steppe ancestry at all, and even later individuals had very little. This suggests that the Beaker culture, the pots, the pans, the styles, arose among the local people here. This cultural package then spread northwards, where it was adopted by the people in Central Europe who were of a completely different genetic origin. And then the people of Central Europe, with their Beaker, steppe, and Neolithic ancestry, became the primary movers, carrying their steppe ancestry and adopted Beaker culture into Britain in a wave that would forever change that island. The Bell Beaker phenomenon was a complex, multifaceted event. It was not one migration, but a series of interconnected movements of both ideas and people. In Iberia, it was primarily a cultural spread. In Europe, it was a story of genetic mixing and assimilation. But in Britain, it was a genetic maelstrom. A massive wave of migration from mainland Europe, carrying ancestry from the distant Eurasian steppe, led to a replacement of at least 90% of the island's existing gene pool. This event fundamentally reshaped the genetic landscape of Britain, establishing a new bedrock of ancestry. But things don't stay the same for long. Check out the cards on the top right corner of this video to see more recent deep dives based on genetic studies from Britain and Ireland. The story of the Beaker folk is a powerful example of how ancient DNA can solve puzzles that archaeology alone cannot. It reminds us that our prehistory is not a static diorama, but a dynamic and sometimes brutal story of movement and change. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy this style of scientific storytelling, please like, subscribe, and share. We'll see you next time for more science.